Maybach SW38 Cabriolet 1939. Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach can be considered two grandfathers of mechanical transportation, and both the Daimler motor and Gesellschaft and the Maybach motor in Bau had great impact on the early history of the automobile. Wilhelm Maybach worked closely with Gottlieb Daimler during the development of the very first automobile at roughly the same time that Carl Benz was developing his patent motor wagon. Maybach was an incredibly gifted engineer, who among his many inventions could count the honeycomb radiator and the atomizing carburetor. Prior to and during World War I, he performed development work on a number of aircraft engines, while perfecting his own large displacement V12 used to power the dirigibles invented by Count Zeppelin. Maybach's original intention was to remain an engine manufacturer, but he had difficulty finding a market for his technically superior, but always expensive and complex products. The first Maybach W3 automobile was introduced in 1921, and development over the ensuing years culminated with the fabulous V12 Type DS7 and DS8 in the early 1930s. While the absolute pinnacle of engineering at the time, these models were, on the one hand, very large, usually requiring a chauffeur, and incredibly expensive, exclusive and heavy on maintenance on the other, with their many cylinders and 8-speed pre-selector vacuum-assisted gearboxes. Few had the need for such an over-the-top machine, and even fewer could afford it. The smaller Type SW38 was introduced in 1936. This was the final model to be released before the war and was available in three versions with straight-six engines of 3.5-liter, 3.8-liter and 4.2-liter capacities. The engineering was a tour de force, and the automotive world was stunned by this six-cylinder car, which was capable of reaching speeds close to 100 miles per hour, a benchmark velocity during the era. The build quality remained on par with the DS cars, and the exquisite manufacture of even the smallest accessories left absolutely nothing to be desired. Customers were captivated by this new lighter and more agile model. It was a deserved commercial success for the marque and sold well in consideration of its exclusivity. A total of 520 chassis were built between 1936 and 1939, which was a substantial number in Maybach terms. Only around 152 of these fabulous Maybachs are known to exist today, so ownership continues to be very exclusive. While the SW38 was meant to be a new smaller Maybach, small is a relative value, and it is only in relation to its gargantuan siblings that the SW38 can be considered a compact automobile. According to information printed in the main reference work for the marque, Michael Graf Wolf Metternich's Maybach Register, chassis 2240 was delivered new to Total KG, Fürstner and Company of Berlin, who were manufacturers of fire extinguishers. It is described as having been fitted with a special four-door cabriolet body, which it clearly retains to this day. The register states that this coachwork was by Peter and Schneffelby, Sidetinge, a lesser-known German coach builder, who exhibited at the Berlin Auto Show in 1938, although today it wears plates for Spawn, one of those most associated with the brand, an anomaly of little consequence given that its coachwork is clearly original. Modest details of its specific features as new are also listed by Metternich, including a split windscreen and Telefunken radio. It is understood also from this source that as new the car was finished in black with a black top and beige leather upholstery. Its Berlin registration was EA 2057 when delivered in 1939. Mr. Metternich then notes its post-war history to have found the car at the U.S. Air Force Base in Frankfurt, Maine, where it was assigned to the National Supply and served as a taxi for several years. After this period of service, the Cabriolet is understood to have been brought to America by a U.S. Army soldier. It would spend time in Gainesville, Florida, then later an owner in Pittsburgh and Keysport, Pennsylvania. Some years ago it would become the property of the famed Imperial Palace Museum collection in Las Vegas. During its time in that custody, the car was comprehensively restored to the condition it can be found today. It was acquired by the current owner some years ago, to join a prominent American collection of pre-war automobiles where it has continued to be cherished and used sparingly. Over the course of the last 2 decades, the Maybach name has of course been revived and quite rightly is associated with the pinnacle of quality, even alongside Mercedes-Benz. Today, this majestic Maybach returns to Europe for the first time in nearly half a century. A remarkable statement of its era, it would no doubt be welcomed at concours events across the continent.